And let me give you the full explanation as to how this happens, because I didn't go out looking for this. I happened to notice the other day that the new rule book was out. And every year at about this time, the NFL publishes, and I love the transparency, the full rule book for anybody who wants to look at it. And I think the joke's on all of us because the NFL knows most of us are too lazy to look at it. So, hey, sure, we'll give you full transparency. Here's a document that we know most of you don't care to look at because it takes more than 10 seconds to begin to digest it. So what I always do when the rule book comes out, and I hate to give away the secret sauce to any of the competitors, but this isn't a real secret. Folks, what are you doing? What are you doing out there? We have this snacking mentality in journalism nowadays, the AI headlines, the misleading clickbait that take 5 minutes to write. Let's do some real work. Let's put our teeth into the rule book. Let's see what's in it. Let's see what's different. And the NFL makes it easy because all the new stuff is in red. So it's not like you have to compare last year to this year and say, I see a difference here. No, all you have to do is scroll through the new rule book and all the changes are in red. And in some aspects of the rule book, there's a lot of red, like with the kickoff. But there are other little subtle things that will pop up. The first thing I noticed, by the way, and we haven't written about this yet at PFT, they finally codified the previously unwritten rule about the whole heel toe, foot down, not down. You know the rule that if you're catching the ball on the sideline, if you do the toe tap and then step out of bounds, it's a catch. But if you do the toes facing inward, heels come down on the line, you're out of bounds. I remember hearing that at one of these seminars that we do before the start of the season with NBC 10, 12, 13 years ago. It's like, I didn't know that. And it comes up from time to time. And they finally put in writing that rule. It wasn't in writing. And that's one of the big problems I always have. We have the rules, and then we have the way they're applied. And sometimes there's a little bit of a conflict. Now they've codified this rule about the foot, the continuous motion, and it's okay if you get the toes in, but if your foot's in the process of coming down, if it finishes on the white line, you're out of bounds. So that was the first thing I saw. Next thing that hit my radar screen, there was a proposal in the offseason to make the rules for intentional grounding the same for inside the pocket as they are outside the pocket. So basically, if you're in the pocket, the walls are collapsing, all you have to do is throw the ball past the line of scrimmage, and it's not intentional grounding. Just get the ball to the line of scrimmage. It's not intentional grounding in the pocket or out of the pocket. That was a proposal that didn't go anywhere. But what they did, and I'd love to know, and I got to find out at some point, I need to remember to do this. What's the procedure for these little tweaks? These little things that maybe weren't articulated as an official rule change, voted on by the owners, and then published to the media, because we weren't told that the rules were revised to redefine being out of the pocket to include any part of the body or the ball being out of the pocket. So what they weren't able to do directly, they kind of did indirectly. Because now all you have to do as a quarterback is get yourself in a position where any part of you, big long arms, get it out of the pocket and throw it. Now you have to be able to muscle it past the line of scrimmage or it's still grounding. But a little pivot to the left or right, a quick step. Quarterbacks will practice that. They'll have that moment, get rid of the ball, boom, get part of my body out of the pocket and fire it past the line of scrimmage out of bounds. And it's not intentional grounding. So it's a very subtle, but I think significant change to the rules where it makes it easier for the officials to keep the flag in the pocket, not call intentional grounding, and give the quarterbacks a way to take the heat out of the hot kitchen without getting hit. They don't want the quarterbacks to get hit. So they don't want the quarterback to say, I'm going to risk intentional grounding here. I'm going to hold on to the ball and then get hit and get injured. Give them a way to get rid of the ball. So even though the rule wasn't changed to let a quarterback inside the pocket, throw it past the line of scrimmage, out of bounds, or wherever there's no receiver and avoid intentional grounding, if any part of your body or the ball are out of the pocket, you can do that and you won't be called for intentional grounding. The next thing I noticed relates to another rule that from time to time is under assault. Remember the report last year during the season, Roger Goodell hates the tush push and he's going to have it outlawed. Well, I don't know that that was true, but if it was true, it didn't come to fruition because the quarterback push play, as perfected by the Philadelphia Eagles, continues to be permissible. However, there's a little language slipped into the rule book that addresses a couple of concerns that have been raised by other teams. Two concerns. One, the crowding around the quarterback by other players who aren't on the line but aren't in the backfield. The rule now limits each team to one player in no man's land. One player who isn't on the line of scrimmage or in the backfield, and that's the guy taking the snap. Must be a player with an eligible number or somebody who is properly reported. More on that in a second. But you can't have the two sidecars right there, ready to push. You got to still be in the backfield. You just run up and push, but still, it avoids that crowding that we've seen around the quarterback. You can't have other players who are in that same no man's land where a quarterback lines up to take a snap. So it changes, doesn't eliminate, but changes one of the techniques for implementing the quarterback push play. As it relates to this requirement that the one player who's in no man's land has to have an eligible number or report in advance as eligible, that prevents a situation where, for example, one of the linemen would slip under center to take the snap in the push play, get the first down, and then go back to playing on the line. The argument that teams made in the past is because you're not going into the backfield or lining up in an eligible position, you don't have to report ahead of time, and you're not subject to the reporting rules, which go like this. If you report as eligible with an ineligible number, you've got to continue to play an eligible position until you leave the game for at least a play. So if you take the snap, you report as you do the Dan Skipper, report as eligible, you're acknowledged properly as being eligible. You take the snap, you can't go straight to the line. You have to continue to be in eligible positions until you come out of the game. That's all gone now. So you can't have a lineman kind of slip under center, take a quick snap, get the first down, get pushed, have the physics on their side, big lineman, big ball carrier, guys behind shoving. You can't do that without reporting, and you can't do that without leaving unless you're going to continue to line up in an eligible position continuously until you leave the game. So those are the tweaks that have been made to the quarterback push play. It still survives, but it's been undermined a bit. This is the way they strike the balance when they get complaints from teams about how aggressively other teams are applying the rules on the books. And that leads to the last one. And this one is fascinating to me. There's language in the new rule book, and I want to make sure I get the quote right. As it relates to false starts and illegal formations, hang on, bear with me. They added this language. Any eligible backfield player who changes his stance does not have to come to a complete stop prior to the snap, as long as his actions are not abrupt, which would be a false start, or forward, which would be illegal motion. Now, we already knew that. That didn't need to be added to the rule book. It doesn't really change the rules. I saw that, though, and it's like, hey, and here's what again, I'm not looking for this. I'm spotting the changes. I'm looking for the red language in the new rule book. And if I have a question, I have people that I can confer with who are within the, structure of the league who can explain to me why this was put in there. So that's what I did. Why is this in there? And the answer was Miami, San Francisco, and the Rams. This cheat motion, speed motion that's been perfected by those teams and other teams either thinking about doing it themselves or complaining about how they do it. And this is aimed at making sure that everybody understands you can do this, but if it's too abrupt, it's a false start. And if you're going forward at the snap, it's illegal motion. Doesn't really change the rules, but they added that language because we saw it last year. I mean, if you watch the games, you see this, and it's not like the full-blown CFL, guy's 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage and he's sprinting to the line. But we see like Tyreek Hill has perfected cutting upfield just before the snap. Moving so quickly and abruptly that it basically Makes the defense pee a little bit. They don't know what to do. Oh my God. And that gives you an edge. That takes the concept of motion and it puts it on hyperdrive. That's what these teams have done. And I saw there was an item in The Athletic from Jordan Rodriguez. Yesterday, Sean Hockley, one of the referees, was at Rams camp. And he said, oh, this doesn't change anything about how we officiate it. Well, it should, because the reason I believe the language was added, the league acknowledges that the referees aren't calling it when it happens. And this is the product of the complaints that get made. Hey, and I was on with Joe Rose, who does radio analysis for the Dolphins. He said last year when the Dolphins were doing this, other teams were going to the officials before the game saying they are cheating here. Their guys are going forward at the snap. They're moving too abruptly. Bill Belichick, then the Patriots coach, one of the ones who complained, according to Joe Rose. So this is the way to kind of placate everyone and make sure everyone understands these are the rules. So the rules don't change per se, but that language wasn't put in there just because they're looking to add words to the rule book. They're not trying to pad the word count like when, we had to do a 300-word essay in school, and it was a very, 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 very cold day. So I just think it's funny that the people who have failed to properly enforce the rules on the books are saying, oh, it doesn't change anything. You failed to apply the rules. You failed to throw the flags. This is directed at you, Sean Hockley, and your peers. Your guys have failed to shut down these plays when it's clearly happening. Now the rules are there to tell you, shut down this play. No, the rule hasn't changed, but they want you to apply the rules more aggressively than you have. And you've got Sean McVay, who's benefited from it, saying, oh, nothing's really changed. Sean, it has, because you no longer can have your guy time it perfectly and cut up field just before the ball's snapped. And it all happens, and think about it, it's all happening in real time. There's a lot going on. So you're the official, you see the guy cut. By the time your brain sends the message to your hand to throw the flag out, it's too late. The moment's passed. The play's started. So this is one of those where they're kind of gaming the system a little bit. It reminds me of what the Legion of Boom did 10, 12 years ago, where they're just going to hold the receiver every play, and they're going to dare the officials to call it. They're not going to shut the game down by throwing a flag for 5 yards and an automatic first down every single play. So the teams that use cheat motion have been manipulating the rules on the books to their favor. This addition is there to send a message to the officials, throw the flag. And it's there to send a message to the teams, we're going to throw the flag if you keep doing the abrupt motion and the heading forward to the line of scrimmage, split second before the snap, because that's what makes it so effective. That's why it's effective, because they are doing it abruptly and they are turning up field just before the snap. It reminds me of what we see from the tackles a lot of times. Lane Johnson is the master of this. That split second, you see the foot go back and he's getting into his pass block set. Now, I think the officials look the other way on that because they're trying to keep the quarterbacks from getting killed. And the defensive linemen, the pass rushers, generally are far better right now than the offensive linemen. So let's go ahead and look the other way on that. But it's the same idea. Things that happen a split second before the snap, it short circuits the brain of the person who's supposed to be throwing the flag, because by the time you get your hand on the flag, you're going to shut down the play when the play has already matured to the point you're going to have contact. And like, why are we shutting down the play when guys are already banging into each other and the ball carrier's already been tackled? Like, what's the point? So I think the idea is they want the officials to throw the flag. And I think in a perfect world, they want the teams to just knock it off. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.